headway with the regards of the trial of Nnamdi Kanu, but we're waiting to see the turn of events. Well, in Finland on Monday, a Finnish court sentenced Samuel Ikpa for terrorism after he was found to have used his social media handle X to incite violence in the southeastern part of Nigeria that led to the deaths of hundreds of people. A Finnish news outlet reported that the charges brought by the Finnish government in December of 2024 are part of a larger investigation during which the Finnish National Bureau of Investigation detained 5 people. 4 of them were suspected of providing financing for terrorist offenses. These 4 were released during the plenary investigation. The Deputy Prosecutor General in Finland charged Ikpa with public incitement to commit a crime with terrorist intent and participation in a terrorist group. Now, there have been reactions since that news broke yesterday about Samuel Ikpa. Some residents of southeastern Nigeria have hailed the arrest and conviction. The Apex Socio-Political Youth Organization, the coalition of Southeast youth leaders, said Ikpa's conviction and eventual sentencing should engender peace and justice for residents of the region rather than heighten political motivated persecutions and persecutions, right? Now, the group also called on the federal government not to borrow the Finnish government and link it to the ongoing trial of the IPOB leader Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, saying his matter remains distinct and must be addressed within the framework of developments as seen across the country. So the group's President General Chief Goodluck Ibem stated, and I quote, "As a group committed to peace, justice, and the protection of lives and property, the dignity of our people, we are closely watching this development and its implications for the southeast region of Nigeria." Right? So, we are satisfied that legal processes were followed and that justice was served in accordance with the laws of Finland. Simon Ekpa's broadcast and actions have been widely linked to the rising tension, killings, and sit-at-home order that have crippled economic activities, engendering lives, and instilling fear in the hearts of innocent people in southeastern Nigeria. Now, his sentencing, we believe, may serve as a deterrent to those who instigate violence from abroad while the people at home suffer the consequence. We call on all agitating parties, both at home and abroad, to embrace dialogue and constructive engagement. The Southeast is in desperate need of peace. Yes. And development and unity, not bloodshed and fear. End of quote. So, that is part of the reaction. Similarly, the president of the Nigerian Farmers Cooperative Society, Abia State Chapter, Chief Nwogu Uzoma, said that though the insecurity has reduced, there are still concerns about the populace. He said it is the fear people have of the hoodlums that still keep them behind doors on Mondays. These a resident who spoke on the condition of anonymity said that the threat posed by another man known as Gentle Yahoo is leading to the attack on travelers and security personnel, especially in Imo State, and called for more efforts to track him down. Legal analyst Ajibola Jimo said the order implies that Ikpa had become an ex-convict, except set aside, adding that the judgment could be tendered as evidence in Nigeria. But it's a different scenario for Kanu. But before we come to Kanu, let's bring you up to speed with the developments as it relates to Simon Ikpa right here on the show. Okay, thought I had this set up. So, anyway, while I'm waiting to, I'm trying to get that update up and running. Different scenario in the case of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. because he has continued to his trial has continued to drag in court, and sources say the federal government's amendment of the charges and moves for political solution for the southeast has okay. I think I have it now. Let's take a look, or take a listen rather.
Convicted of terrorism and sentenced to 6 years in prison by a Finnish court. The Päijät-Häme District Court in Finland has found Simon Ekpa guilty of terrorism-related offences and sentenced to 6 years in prison. Ekpa, who lived in Finland and called himself the Prime Minister of the Biafra Republic government in exile, was convicted on Monday for participating in a terrorist organization and publicly encouraging crimes for terrorist purposes. The court found that between August 2021 and November 2024, Ekpa used his large social media following to promote violence and encourage unrest in southeastern Nigeria. According to the court's ruling, Ekpa was an influential member of a separatist movement that created armed groups with the goal of securing Biafra independence through force. Finnish investigators told the court that Ekpa helped supply weapons, ammunition, and explosives to these groups through his contacts in Nigeria. The court also found him guilty of using the social media platform X, formerly known as Twitter, to encourage his followers to commit crimes in Nigeria. Ekpa was born in Nigeria but moved to Finland in 2007. Denied all the charges during his trial, he was a long-time resident of the city and companies. The court also convicted Ekpa of aggravated tax fraud in addition to terrorism charges. The Finnish court said it had jurisdiction to protect him because the crime people of Biafra group remains in detention in Nigeria on terrorism charges. The court can be used as an evidence in international terrorism cases. What are your thoughts on this conviction? Do you think Finnish courts should prosecute crimes that affect other countries, or should such cases be handled only in Nigeria?
Of course, that we hear that the Nigerian government may seek the repatriation of Ikpa after the Finnish court has already jailed him, giving a verdict of jailing him for 6 years, right? Yeah, so we hear that the federal government has hinted that it may seek the repatriation of Simon Ekpa to Nigeria following his 6-year jail sentence in Finland for terrorism-related offenses. A district court in Finland on Monday sentenced the Nigerian-born Finn to 6 years in prison for terrorism-related crimes and other offenses. The 40-year-old former municipal politician from Leyte was convicted on multiple charges, including participation in the activity of a terrorist organization, incitement to commit crimes for terrorist purposes, aggravated tax fraud, and violations of the Lawyers Act. The court ordered that Ikpa remain in custody. Yeah. According to the judgment, between August 2021 and November 2024, Ikpa attempted to promote the independence of the so-called Biafra region in southeastern Nigeria through illegal means. He was quoted as, the document quote, it was quoted as saying he used social media to gain a politically influential position and took advantage of the confusion within a key separatist movement in Nigeria to play a significant role in it. End of quote. The court statement stated as reported by the BBC. Ikpa denied all charges against him, as you heard in that report. The court also found that Ikpa was instrumental in funding and developing the separatist movement into a more organized structure, working alongside others. It was revealed during the trial that armed groups were established under the movement, which the court classified as terrorist organizations. Ikpa equipped the group with weapons, explosives, and ammunition through his contact network. He also urged and enticed his followers on X, formerly Twitter, to commit crimes in Nigeria, the court said. The trial was conducted over 12 sessions between May 30, June 25th, of 2025, with a panel of 3 judges unanimously delivering the verdict. While speaking with the Punch newspaper on Monday, the Minister of Information and Orientation, Mohammed Idris, hinted about the possibility of the federal government seeking the repatriation of Ikpa. Now, when asked whether the government intended to request Ikpa's repatriation at the end of his jail term, Idris replied, "The Nigerian government will assess the situation and take decisions in the best interest of the country." Similarly, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Lateef Fagbemi, SAN, in a statement noted that further steps would be taken once the judgment had been officially reviewed. Yeah. So, reacting to the verdict, the federal government welcomed this decision, describing it as a major step in the global fight against extremists and a boost to international legal cooperation. In a statement signed by Idris, the government said, and I quote, "This ruling stands as a watershed moment, not only for the countless innocent Nigerians whose lives and livelihood have been brutally disrupted by the reign of terror incited and financed by Ikpa and his collaborators, but also for the strengthening of bilateral relations between Nigeria and Finland." The government commended the Finnish judiciary for what it described as a firm stand in upholding the rule of law, while reiterating its commitment to using diplomatic, legal, and security channels to maintain national peace and sovereignty. The Minister of Information, Idris, noted, and I quote, "By upholding the rule of law and ensuring that justice is served, the Finnish judiciary has not only vindicated Nigeria's consistent position on this matter, but also sent a clear signal to extremists everywhere that the world is watching and justice will catch up with those who seek to destabilize societies through terror." The statement also reaffirmed the Tinubu administration's commitment to defending Nigeria's sovereignty and maintaining peace and unity through all available means, diplomatic, military, and judiciary. Calling on followers of Ikpa and others involved in separatist violence to renounce armed struggle, the government urged them to lay down their arms and embrace peace. The statement reads as such, and I quote, "We urge all those who, under the misguidance of Simon Ikpa and others, have taken up arms against their fatherland to immediately lay them down and embrace the path of peace. Nigeria is big enough for all its people, but there can be no progress where violence and division prevail." End of quote. The Minister of Information also expressed appreciation to Nigeria's security and intelligence agencies, the Armed Forces, the Federal Ministry of Justice, and the Office of the National Security Advisor for their continued efforts in maintaining national security and ongoing challenges. The Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, also welcomed the ruling, describing it as a landmark victory in the global effort to combat terrorism and violent extremism. In a statement by the Director of Defense Information, Brigadier General Chukwu Gusau, the CDS stated, and I quote, "The conviction reinforces the principle that those who incite violence and form terrorism will be held accountable regardless of their location." End of quote. Musa also commended Nigeria's law enforcement, intelligence agencies, and diplomats, saying their work demonstrated the power of international collaboration. So, like I said, varied reactions have continued to follow the news of Simon Ikpa's trial and eventual judgment in Finland. Amid the conviction, the indigenous people of Biafra have distanced itself from Simon Ikpa, insisting he was never part of their organization. In a statement signed by IPOB's Media and Publicity Director, Ima Powerful, the group declared, and I quote, "IPOB under oath in a Finnish court testified that Simon Ikpa has never held any position in IPOB or ESN. Ikpa himself under oath described himself as merely as a content creator, admitted he disowned IPOB and boasted that he would destroy IPOB." End of quote. The statement further accused Ikpa of creating parallel groups unaffiliated with the main organization. Ikpa created his own parallel contraptions, Biafra Government in Exile, Biafra Liberation Army, and Biafra Defense Force, entities that have been condemned by IPOB itself. So, rejecting any connection to the convicted separatists, Powerful said, and I quote in the statement that has been made available to the media, the indigenous people of Biafra, under the command of our unlawful detained leader, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, issues this urgent rebuttal to the false and malicious attempt by the Nigerian government and its compromised media collaborators to link the conviction of one Simon Ekpa in Finland to IPOB's lawful activities. This is a brazen fraud against truth and justice. The world must know that the question of Simon Ekpa's non-membership in IPOB is already judicially settled in Finland, the statement read. Now, Powerful also cautioned against using the conviction to undermine IPOB or influence legal proceedings involving Nnamdi Kanu. He called on the international community to intervene. The media director said that, and I quote, "We call upon global actors of conscience such as the European Union and Finland. You bear direct responsibility for ensuring your judicial findings are not misinterpreted or misrepresented abroad." The Finnish courts exonerated IPOB of any link to Simon Ekpa. We demand clarity be issued to Nigeria to stop this malicious misuse. IPOB is a peaceful movement registered under international law, committed to lawful self-determination. Furthermore, an apex social political youth organization in Igbo land, the Coalition of Southeast Youth Leaders, I mentioned it earlier, said the sentencing of Ekpa should engender peace and justice for the residents of the region rather than heighten political motivated persecutions. So these are the reactions that have followed Simon Ekpa's judgment in Finland, and those reactions continue to pour in. But as I said, it's a different scenario for Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, because the case against Kanu has continued to drag in court. Sources say the federal government amendment of the charges and moves for a political solution by southeastern leaders may have contributed to the delay of the case. But tell me what you think. The phone lines are open for us to take your contributions, your reaction. The number is 0808-312-8618. Does it in any way suggest that with the 6-year jail term of Simon Ekpa, is there peace in sight? Will this help in any way to resolve the issue of insecurity in the southeast? Will this also be able to bring some sanity to the continued trial of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, who has continued to say that his continued detention and elongated trial is not lawful? It's not lawful. Well, the trial has proceeded before a federal high court in Abuja, where he is expected to open his defense on October 10th, after the federal government concluded its case against him with 5 witnesses alleging his formation of the Eastern Security Network, ESN, which has unleashed violence in the southeast. And of course, the timeline of Nnamdi Kanu's trial seems to be unending, because Kanu was first arraigned in 2015 before a magistrate court in Abuja, and then on October 19, 2015, on allegations of criminal conspiracy, managing and belonging to an unlawful society, and criminal intimidation under sections 97 subsection B and 397 of the Penal Code. Now, the charges were taken to the Federal High Court in Abuja in December 2015, where the judge ordered his release. The federal government then filed a fresh 6-count charge bordering on felony and terrorism against him, alongside Benjamin Madubuku and David Nwawusi. Both defendants were later acquitted and discharged. Now, according to the charges, Kanu was alleged to have been between 2014 and September 2015 conspired with some unknown persons in the United Kingdom and South and in the United Kingdom, through broadcast on Radio Biafra, sought the states in the southeast and south-south zones, the Igala community of Kogi State and the Doma Igede community of Benue State to cede from the Federal Republic of Nigeria and form themselves into a Republic of Biafra. Right now, Kanu was on April 25th, 2017 granted bail on health grounds and ordered to produce the sum of 100 million naira bail bonds and 3 sureties in like sum. Now, the defendant was alleged to have jumped bail in September after a military invasion of his residence in Afara Uku, Umahia, Abia State. Now, in June 2021, the federal government arrested and renditioned Kanu from Kenya, and he was rearraigned on an amended 15-count charge bordering on terrorism and treasonable felony before the Federal High Court, presided over by Justice Binta Nyako. The judge in May struck out 8 of the 15 count charges, comprising count 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 of the charges. It okayed Kanu's a trial on counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, and 15. However, after he appealed against the ruling, asking the Court of Appeal to discharge him of the remaining charges, the Appellate Court panel, presided by Justice Jummai Hanatu Saki, on October 13, 2022, discharged and acquitted him, citing executive recklessness in his extraordinary rendition from Kenya. On March 19, 2024, the Supreme Court acknowledged a violation of Kanu's rights in the invasion of his residence and his extraordinary rendition, but refused him bail application and instead ordered him to return to the Federal High Court to face trial. On September 24, 2024, Justice Nyako recused herself from the matter after Kanu demanded that the trial judge recuse herself, and the matter was reassigned to Justice James Omotosho. There have been several efforts by the leaders of the Southeast to get a political solution in the case of Kanu, one of it being the November 19, 2021 visit to former President Muhammadu Buhari, led by First Republic Minister Chief Mbazu Ike Amechi. The then presidential spokesman, Femi Adesina, said Buhari told them that an unconditional release of Kanu runs contrary to the doctrine of separation of powers between the executive and the judiciary. So that's how it's been so far. But speaking on the latest development with the jailing of Simon Ekpa for 6 years for on terrorism-related crimes, the federal government said it would take further action after it receives and studies the judgment of the Finnish court. And the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Lateef Fagbemi, SAN, in a statement on Monday, hailed the conviction of Simon Ekpa, saying it was a confirmation that he had committed heinous crimes against Nigerians, especially in Southeast. Similarly, the Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, posted on his X handle, formerly known as Twitter, and I quote, "We welcome the news of Simon Ekpa's conviction by Finnish court for terrorism-related crimes and his sentencing to 6 years in prison." End of quotes. He added that it was a major victory for the Nigerian people in the collective fight against terror. And of course, the Department of State Service, DSS, is pushing for the conclusion of the case of the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, in the person of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, following the conviction of 6-year sentence of Ekpa, and a reaction from a DSS official under Anatomy revealed that the nation's secret police was also pushing for the conclusion of other terrorism related cases, including those of the suspects linked to Al Shabaab and involved in the 2022 St. Francis Catholic Church Owo attack, those of Albam and Yelwata Benue State invaders, all pending before the courts. The source revealed that the DSS was instrumental in Ekpa's quick sentencing and conviction through the evidence it tendered. So, the official urged the judiciary to consider speedy dispensation of justice in many cases being handled. So, these are the developments, and it is interesting how these reactions probably will shape the future cases, especially the October 10th case of Nnamdi Kanu as he appears before the court to defend himself on charges that have been brought against him. Of course, the military on its part have warned any individual or organization sponsoring terrorism against Nigeria while hiding in foreign lands to stop forthwith before meeting their Waterloo. And it said the 6-year jail term handed to Ikpa was a clear sign that there is no haven for groups that sponsor or encourage acts of terrorism against Nigeria. Of course, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Mustafa, said Nigeria will not in any way tolerate anybody who wants to destabilize the country or any other sovereign nation. Musa, who spoke via a statement signed by the Director of Defense Information, Tuku Gasso, a Brigadier General, described the ruling as a landmark victory in the global efforts to combat terrorism and violent extremism. So, the phone lines are still open, but we'll take a quick breather. And when we come back, let's get more of your reactions with regards to this development, with regards to Simon Ekpa, and the fact that the Nigerian government is not just satisfied with a 6-year jail term handed by a Finnish court, but with the hope of eventually repatriating Ekpa for him to face further charges here on home soil in Nigeria. All this and more. And of course, don't forget the fact that the case of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu continues to drag. And he will be appearing in court on October 10th to defend himself, especially after the prosecution had finished its own presentation of the case. All this and more in just a moment, right here on the Arena on 96.1 FM, Abuja.
The battle for ideas has begun. Get ready to enter the arena. Join the conversation on the most controversial and thought-provoking current affairs radio talk show in Abuja. Welcome for me, I'm just
All right, if you're just joining us, this is the Arena on Tuesday's edition of the Morning Ride, and we are looking at the terrorism-related crimes after Samuel Ikpa was jailed 6 years by a Finnish court, and of course the fact that the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's case continues to drag. What are the implications of Ekpa's 6-year jail term? The fact that the Nigerian government yesterday welcomed the conviction of Biafran separatist Samuel Ikpa in Finland for terrorist-related crimes, describing the verdict as a bold step towards justice and a victory against violence. Of course, I did tell you earlier the reactions of the government through the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, who on his verified X handle at H Mohammed described the sentencing of Ikpa to 6 years imprisonment as a major victory for the Nigerian people in the collective fight against terror. Idris in the post stated, and I quote, "We welcome the news of Simon Ekpa's conviction by a Finnish court for terrorism-related crimes and his sentencing to 6 years in prison. A major victory for the Nigerian people in the collective fight against terror." Similarly, Chief of Defense Staff, CDS, General Christopher Musa, applauded the judgment delivered by the Finnish court. Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Lateef Fagbemi, described the conviction as good news. Nigerian Bar Association, NBA, who just recently finished their AGM in Enugu, and a civil society organization, Rule of Law and Accountability Advocacy Center, RULAC, urged the government to emulate the good example set by the Finnish District Court in convicting and sentencing perpetrators for terrorism. In its judgment delivered yesterday, the 3-man panel of judges ruled that Ikpa incited terrorism, participated in the activities of a terrorist organization, and exploited his significant social media following to spread violent propaganda and destabilize Nigeria's southeastern region between August 2021 and November 2024. According to Finnish newspaper, the court held that Ikpa was not merely a commentator but an influential member of a militant separatist movement intent on carving out an independent Biafra state from Nigeria. The judges found that he issued direct calls to violence on social media platforms, especially X, formerly known as Twitter, and encouraged attacks on Nigerian security operatives. Beyond online incitement, the court further determined that Ikpa facilitated the supply of weapons, explosive, and ammunition to armed groups in Nigeria through his network of contacts in the region. And prosecutors also presented evidence of extravagant tax fraud and breaches of the Attorneys Act, which the court upheld. Ikpa, who moved to Finland in 2007 as an athlete, under the disguise of an athlete, had previously been a member of the National Coalition Party, National Coalition Party, NCP, and once served as Leyte's Public Transport Board, as a member of the Leyte's Public Transport Board. He rose to prominence after the extradition of the indigenous people of Biafra leader Nnamdi Kanu in 2021, when he was appointed lead broadcaster for Radio Biafra. However, he was later dismissed by IPOB over disagreements regarding operational rules, prompting him to establish a splinter sectionist movement. From Finland, Ikpa routinely issued sit-at-home orders in Nigeria's southeast and urged violent resistance against authorities. His directives were frequently disowned by IPOB, which repeatedly sought to distance itself from his activities. Finnish authorities, working closely with Nigerian security agencies, launched an extensive investigation into Ikpa's activities. During police interviews, he denied all charges, including allegations of ordering weapons for separatist groups. His defense lawyer, argued that much of the evidence relied on reports from Nigeria, raising questions about their reliability. Nevertheless, state prosecutor insisted the case was built on a great deal of evidence showing Ekpa's activity online role in supporting terrorism. While acknowledging difficulties in verifying events that occurred in Africa, prosecutors argued that his coordinated propaganda from Finland constituted terrorism under Finnish law. Ekpa was arrested in Finland in November of 2024. By March 2025, the Nigerian federal government officially designated him a terrorist financier. The conviction cemented his fall from political activism in Finland to being brandished and branded an international security threat. The verdict represents one of the most high-profile cases in Finland linking local residents to terrorism abroad. Fagbemi said the conviction was good news. He said the development was a confirmation that Ikpa had influenced and committed hideous crimes against the Nigerian people, especially in the southeastern part of the country. The AGF stressed in a statement he personally signed, and I quote, "We commend the Finnish authorities for supporting Nigeria in the fight against insecurity and see this as a signal of future collaboration. Appropriate further action will be taken upon receipt and under studying a copy of the judgment of the court." End of quote. Musa equally applauded the judgment delivered by the Finnish District Court. He described the ruling as a landmark victory in the global effort to combat terrorism and violent extremism, stating that the conviction reinforces the principle that those who incite violence and fund terrorism will be held accountable regardless of their location. So, those are the continuous reactions since yesterday when news broke. Now, lead counsel to the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Ifeanyi Ejiofor Esquire, KSC, has said that the conviction of Simon Ekpa by a district court in Finland does not come as a surprise because he had long understood the weight of his infractions, the inherent weaknesses of his defense, and the inevitable collapse of the fraudulent empire he built on lies, violence, and exploitation. I mean, that is coming from the lead counsel to the indigenous people of Biafra, Ifeanyi Ejiofor Esquire, KSC. Now, he contended that from the very beginning, when Ikpa launched his treacherous bid to usurp the authority of the Directorate of State, DOS, of the IPOB, his agenda was never hidden. He was aided both openly and discreetly by individuals and groups whose mission was to derail the genuine struggle for self-determination, sow confusion, and ultimately reduce Ala Igbo into a theater of violence, bloodshed, and blackmail. Reacting to Ekpa's conviction in a press statement, Ejiofor admitted that at a time, Ikpa and his followers succeeded with their deadly declarations, recklessly amplified across media platforms, were swallowed hook, line, and sinker by vulnerable and misguided elements. Well, what are the lessons that can be learned from Simon Ekpa's conviction? Well, according to Ejiofor, Simon Ekpa's conviction under a jurisdiction that respects human rights and the rule of law offers deep lessons. It demonstrates that no amount of lies, propaganda, or fraudulent appeals to self-determination can shield a criminal enterprise built on fraud, bloodshed, and deception. It is therefore imperative that our people begin to wear their thinking caps and ask hard questions. No rational mind should have believed Ekpa's outrageous lies about stationed warships and combat-ready jets in Igbo land. His entire project was nothing but an elaborate scam designed to defraud the very people he claimed to liberate. Even now, some of his misguided followers are being deceived into believing that his conviction somehow upheld his right to self-determination. That is false. The court never upheld any such right because his trial and conviction was never about his purported right to self-determination. Rather, the court convicted him for fraud, deception, and actions that funded violence against the same people he professed to defend. That is the height of criminality. The chickens have indeed come home to roost, but what about the thousands of lives which have been wasted as a result of Ikpa's poisonous preachings? Many of his misguided followers languish in detention without trial. Many more were killed and extrajudicially. Their parents and families remain in pain. Throughout this era, not one of the lawyers secretly hobnobbing with Ikpa was bold enough to openly defend his followers or seek their release. Instead, the victims of his scams were abandoned while he thrived abroad. Time for a new beginning. It's time for stock taking, time to reject criminality, fraud, and blackmail as tools of agitation. Time to rise above emotional manipulation and stand firmly for truth, justice, and peace and peaceful struggle. Ikpa may be convicted today, but the scars of his deceit and the devastation left behind will take years to clean from Alaigbo. Let the lesson be clear to all. No legitimate struggle for liberation can be built on deceit, fraud, and violence against one's own people. Those who still glorify Ikpa or tread his path are not freedom fighters. They are merchants of death. The future of Alaigbo must never again be left in the hands of impostors who exploit the pain of their people for personal gain. So those are the continued reactions, and we still have just about 2-3 minutes left. The phone lines are still very much open to get your reactions to all of this, and what is the way forward? What is the future now, especially after Simon Biafra agitator Simon Ikpa met his end yesterday with a district court in Finland sentencing him to 6 years in prison for terrorist offenses. Let us know. 0808-312-8618. 0808-312-8618. Remember, even when the show goes off the air, the conversation continues online, and that's why I encourage you to follow, like, share, and subscribe to Voice of the People 96.1 FM Abuja online on Facebook, Instagram, and on X, formerly known as Twitter. And we're also streaming live on our YouTube channel as well, so that's the more reason why you should click on that alert button, so that every new and fresh edition of the Arena and every other show right here on 96.1 FM, you get to be able to follow developments and conversations. Remember, we are live and interactive, so even when the show goes off the air on conventional radio, the conversation continues online. And don't forget, you can also send your views and comments via our WhatsApp portal. 0808-312-8618 is the number of our WhatsApp portal, and of course you can still send your views, comments, and reactions via text message as well. All right, and tomorrow, of course, will be another time, top of the hour, 8 a.m. on Wednesday's edition of the Morning Ride, as we will be looking at the conversation. We will be talking about Jonathan's reaction to Keyamo and the build-up to 2027, the possibility of him running on the platform of the PDP. Don't also forget that Minister of the FCT and former Governor of Rivers State, Chief Nyesom Wike, has said that the return of Peter Obi to the PDP will destroy the party ahead of 2027. All that will form our conversation tomorrow on the Arena. So be part of the conversation. Let's you have a voice. Yeah, right here on Voice of the People, 96.1 FM Abuja. Special thanks to everyone for making time to allow us be part of your morning, and trust us Monday through Friday on the morning ride to bring you all the stories as they evolve, developing stories, breaking stories. We do our bit to keep our ears on the ground and our searchlight beamed on developments as they evolve. I am Nkamian John, the beloved, also known as the controversial, saying thank you. Have a wonderful day, and see you tomorrow.